What is up, guys? Soldiers here, and today we are finally back. It has been a very long time since I've uploaded anything regarding Roblox Studio or anything else. But today is the brink of our new series when it comes to building. Building is a very, very important thing when it comes to any kind of Roblox development. You gotta know how to build at least a little bit. So today I'm gonna be breaking it down piece by piece about the beginning of your building adventure and how to become a pro builder. So the first thing everyone wants to do now is go to Toolbox and just grab something. Well, guess what? You're gonna know how to make everything in here when you finish watching this series. I'll be doing this series every single day I can, and if I have a miss update, then you can go down below in the my buddy Alex's Discord. You can join there and we will provide more information there if you have any questions, comments, or concerns and stuff like that. So everyone's main problem solver is Toolbox. And the thing that you guys have to know about Toolbox, you see, if it is marked as a high quality item, that means it is used a lot. Some of these items have been here longer than most Roblox players. Like, most of these items were probably made like in 2015 or before. So, you know, these can contain viruses or backdoors that can also make your game very laggy or buggy or anything like that. And that's why you do not ever want to use free items from the Toolbox unless you are trying to get a reference to what you're building. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go to model and we're going to insert a normal block. All right, this is the start of everything. Everything has to start somewhere, and with builders, it's a block. Okay, so we're going to be breaking down everything when it comes to properties, and I will be talking about some other stuff later on in the series if you guys ask about it in the comments. But for now, I'm just going to go over the important stuff that everyone uses, at least nowadays. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is brick color. Pretty self-explanatory. It changes the color of the item that's in front of you, whether it's a cylinder, wedge, sphere, or anything. It'll change the color of it, and you know, cool stuff like that. And let's just make it my favorite color. All right, I love the color persimmon in here. All right, let's just make it persimmon. And before we get more into this, I'm going to be talking about these three tools here. Transform isn't really something you guys need to know. All it does is it's like an advanced version of everything. All right, so it can only move up and down. Of course, you can adjust its size based on its studs. If you want to take a more mathematical approach, you can use transform, and it'll give you the exact calculations of how big it is. So the problem with this is that if you're trying to be perfect about what you do, you cannot physically move it from left to right on either of its axes. So the only way you can move it is if you physically grab it and then move it like that, or you can move it up and down or rotate it based on which axle you are rotating. Transform is a very advanced tool, but we will not say no more because it's not something that you should be using as a beginner just quite yet. Move, self-explanatory. You can move it up and down, you know, side to side and stuff like that, depending on which axle you grabbed, whether it's the X, Y, or Z. And scaling, it is based off the same axles, and you know, you got green makes it taller or shorter. Blue can make it either wider or lengthier, and you know, red, same thing, width, depending on how you're looking at it, and cool stuff like that. So rotation is kind of self-explanatory too. It's where you want to rotate the item. You know, you can rotate it any way you want. We can make this thing look very, very dumb with rotations and cool stuff like that. Okay, so now that we've gone over that stuff, casting a shadow. So what that means is that this item, you see how we have a shadow here? That's its way of blocking out the predated light that's already in the game. So if we turn this off, the shadow disappears. Now, if you want realism in your game, keep all shadows in it and have a decent computer. That's pretty much all you got to do. Okay, so color, same thing with brick color. You got just a different pad. You can have your own custom colors. You can affect the colors already there. So let's move this, and you can change it mathematically too if that's the kind of approach you want. So we'll just make this a little bit darker. Material, you have a list of material that's never going to change. Sadly, I'm sure they'll eventually add more, but of course you can make your own material. But we'll get that, and we'll get into that later on. So you have concrete, let's say foil, granite, all this cool stuff, and of course the most popular one is probably wood and wood planks. Everyone uses it. Sand, everything. All right, everything you think of. We'll just keep it neon because it looks somewhat decent. So now that we have gone over that, we have reflectancy. So what reflectancy does is, based on the material that you're losing, it will reflect the, let's just say, images around it. So if we have this pointed to the floor, and let's say we have one reflectancy, let's change the material here to glass because that's the best reflectant. So as you see, this thing is solid blue because it is reflecting the skybox for what it is. Sadly, it does not work. It's very complicated to use sometimes because it doesn't reflect everything you want. Of course, you can make mirrors and realistic glass and stuff like that. So if we make this, let's say 0.5 transparency, there you go. There's a 0.5 transparency with reflectancy on it, and cool stuff like that. So if we look through, those clouds are there, right? All right. So you can completely see through it and all that cool stuff, and then it will reflect whatever walks across it. It really depends on the color and everything. Reflectancy isn't just something you turn on and it works, and cool stuff like that. So now that we have appearance done, we're going to be going into the data. These three that are blacked out aren't stuff you have to worry about. That's that's very, very specific stuff. The center of mass does not matter, and the mass does not matter. Okay, that's stuff that we don't mess with. Okay, so class name, of course, that's just what the part is called. So if we just call it, let's just call it Kyle, because why not? Kyle with a C, because we're annoying. Kyle. There we go. All right, so that's the name of the part. The class name is derived of what it is from. So if we would insert a cylinder, the class name would be a cylinder. So that's, and if we grab like a particle or something, the class name of that would be particle. It is whatever it starts off as. The beginner name of it, that's what the class name is. Orientation is based on the rotation of the object, unless you're just really good with math and rotations and axles and cool stuff like that, your X, Y, and Z attributes and all that cool stuff, then feel free to use this rotation. Let's just do 1, 1, 1. There you go. It's perfectly fine now. Okay? Basic stuff. Of course, we can get more mathematical with it. Let's just do some random jibber jabber. See, we can rotate it based on math. I don't recommend it because it's a brain hurt. The parent isn't really what you want to worry about much. So if we change it to replicated first, the parent is replicated first because that is what it is under. If we put it under better base plate, the parent would be better base place. Okay, so now we have that over with. The position, that would be the position that it is in the workspace. If we change it to replicated storage, it is still in the same position. It is just removed from that. It is removed from the workspace, so it's not visible and cool stuff like that. So if we put in a starter, we can grab it. We put in star GY, the position is still going to be the same, but it's always going to stay in this spot until you physically move it from its spot in the workspace. And the position is based off of where it is in the workspace, and the workspace is pretty big. So Now that we have that, the velocity is not something we'll be going over until later on, unless you guys really need to know what it is. Velocity is the speed of, it is like our miles per hour, but it's based on studs. Very hard to explain. If you're making let's say guns, your bullets have velocity, your cars have velocity, awesome stuff like that. That's all in the scripting. Usually, it's a lot of math, and it's really, you really have to study what velocity is before you just go tinkering with it. And we won't really be going over it in this video. Now, if we go into behaviors, our first attribute is anchored. So if we don't anchor it, this is just going to fall over and just sit there. It'll be movable and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and click play, and I'll show you what the anchoring does. So you see it fell over, and of course we can push this over, and well, my character's probably too small to be all that. Okay, there we go. So we pushed it. We can move it and stuff. If I drive a car into it, it would probably explode. It'd probably just go flying off in there. And if we anchor it, it would stay exactly how it is, and it would not move. Archivable isn't really something that we need to know, at least for right now. You can just check what this says. It changes the instance, whether it is able to be saved to a data store and stuff like that. You're not going to want to save a part to a data store unless it's like a sword or something. So we don't have to really worry about that now. So can collide. If we turn this off, we'll be able to walk through it and all that nice stuff. So if we go in here, I have it off. And if we go over here and touch it, we walk right through it, and if we try to drive a car, it'll go right through it. You cannot touch this block in any way possible if the can collide is off, unless you were changing it by a script. So what the collision group ID is this is something that's more into the advanced side of building, but it's really easy to do. All you got to do is put your group ID in, and that changes whether it's collidable or not. So if you're in this group, you can walk through it, or it'll stop you, or whatever you want it to do. So if we go into locked, so what lock does is if we click off of it, we can no longer select this object. So unless you're never going to touch it again, don't lock it. And if it's let's say if it's a weapon, don't lock it. Stuff like that. Massless is not something we will be going over in this video. That's not really used much when it comes to building. If you're just building a whole map that's massless, go right for it. But it's not really something that we need to talk about, and it's not really that important. And then we have the resizable faces and increments. That doesn't really matter much. It's blacked out, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now we're getting into the part itself. So we can have custom physical properties. Usually you put all that stuff in the script if you're making one. Cool stuff like that. And then we have the root priority, and it's really not something we need to know either. So we're just going to skip it. And then of course we can change the shape. We can make it a ball, we can make it a cylinder, or we can make it a block. Okay, and yes, that does change the size for some odd reason. So that's the basics that we're going to be going over, at least today. And of course, if you want to do a mathematical size, attributes, and cool stuff like that, you can go right ahead. You are a genius if you can. If we would just make this all at once, there you go. It's a perfect ball. It's a perfect little red ball. Okay, so that's all of this stuff that we're going to go over as far as properties and a part. We're going to be touching up on all of this stuff in a little bit. I'm going to be explaining a little bit about this series. I'm going to be doing a beginner and an advanced. It's just going to be two separate things. I'm going to be loading you with a bunch of information when it comes to building. And in the next video, we'll actually be getting into a little bit of building and cool stuff like that. And as far as the whole series goes, I'm going to be trying to upload every single day that I can. If you have any questions, leave it down below in the comments, or you can go to the Discord below. It's not my Discord, it's my buddy Alex's Discord. but you can physically ask me or any of the developers in there, primarily me. Try not to ask the other people it, but if I don't answer, you know, you can ask one of them and probably their DMs, they probably won't care. And cool stuff like that. So next we're going to be talking about collisions. Now collisions aren't very tricky. That's whether it can collide with whatever it is in the workspace. So we try to push it down, it will not go through this. All right, that's what colliding does. So if we turn collisions off, it will actually phase through this object. Okay, so that's basically what collisions does. Of course, we have the rotate variables. I have mine as low as possible because I want to. So yeah, you can change how many studs you move it. So if we change this to like 100, and if we just move this up, it'll be changing the it'll be moving it 100 studs up or 100 studs any other direction. Please ignore the background noise. We got constraints and drawing surfaces. You really don't have to talk about those. They're not very important when it comes to building yet. And then of course we have the part, material, color, and surface. You know, the surface, if you click studs, and just click the side of this. Yeah, all right. The smooth no outline. We really can't do this to the ball. So of course we got the materials. We already talked about that. This is just kind of a better representation. We got color and cool stuff like that. And then we have the group. We can group it under a model or we can ungroup it. We got the locked property. Don't use it. Or the anchor property. It's basically all this stuff. And then we'll be talking about this stuff later on. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I'll be teaching you everything I can and everything that I know about building, so you'll be a pro builder just like the best developers out there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.